877-207-2276. Here's Matt Slick. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. Matt Slick Live. You are listening to Matt Slick. Isn't it work out really nicely? We're going to have a special guest on today. And so what I'm going to do is just jump right in there and get to him pretty quickly here. And we're going to be discussing evolution, creationism, and stuff like that. Hopefully, it'll be a good call. Anthony Sylvester, are you there?
I am here. How are you, Matt?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I'm more hanging. I'm doing okay. How are you, buddy?
I'm good, although I've got a bone to pick with you right off the bat here.
All right.
So when we put ism on the end of a word,
Uh-huh.
we know it's kind of fairy tale-ish, right?
No, not
So
always.
it should be evolution. It should be evolutionism and creation.
Okay, evolutionism and creation. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, see that?
That makes sense. Evolutionism.
Yeah.
Yeah, or evolutionolatry. Yeah.
They don't like it when we say that.
No, they don't. I like it. Evolutionism. That's
No.
not a bad idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to start using that. Well, that's one good suggestion you give me this year. I got to mark that down. It's pretty good. Okay, I will tell you what.
6 months.
That's right, pretty good. So, folks, look, what we're going to do, he's going to be on the air the whole show, and you can ask questions about creation, evolution, Genesis. We're going to talk about some stuff, and I've been mentioning him off and on that he'll be on here for the past week or two, and he and I have had some discussions, some very good stuff. And you're breathing into the phone, buddy. Got to move that phone away there. And so, what we're going to do, I would like Anthony to introduce himself so that you can know more about him. Go ahead, Anthony.
Thank you.
Mhm.
So I'm a dentist by day and an evangelist by night.
Mhm.
So, people often introduce me as Dr. Sylvester, although I have to put a caveat that most people would say I'm not a real doctor. But having said that, I'm a dentist, and I've just grown a love. God's given me a love of apologetics.
Good.
And so I once was an evolutionist who, by my own admission, very surface level understanding of what evolutionism is.
Mhm.
And once you start digging just a little bit past the surface, as I was forced to do shortly after I got saved,
Mhm.
I realized that none of it made sense.
Right.
And now I carry a big chip on my shoulder and want to be able to teach the church everywhere on biblical creation. That God didn't use evolution whatsoever, that he created everything after its own kind, including human beings. And I've had an opportunity to teach around the country for several years now.
Mhm.
And just God's been using me kind of everywhere in his grace. I really enjoyed being able to bring it to the local church and teach people so that they can teach others within their own churches.
That's awesome. Well, good stuff. So you were an evolutionist. You know, I was too, and until I started studying it, and I didn't know early on in my Christian walk. I thought, well, can God use evolution to get here? Of course, He did. That was my just assumption. And I started studying. And I'm not going to get into what my reasons were, but I started studying and went, wait a minute, there's so many holes here. And you're right, evolutionism. It's a belief system. What was it for you that did it?
So what did it for me, and I'll tell you a quick story on this. I remember early on after getting saved, I was here on the deck of my house with my wife and some of her friends, who were the ones that originally witnessed to me when I had gotten saved. And they were telling me that they believe God created in 6 literal days about 6,000 years ago. And I said, you guys are nuts. You know nothing about science. So anti-scientific. You guys got problems. So that's the backdrop, right? And I continued for a couple of years trying to reconcile the understanding of creation in the Bible, evolution in the Bible, and the reality is they're irreconcilable. You can't do it. But I tried. And so what ended up happening is my wife had a real heart for wanting to go and do a missions trip.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, we were doing evangelism in Cleveland, where I live. having a wonderful time doing it. She's like, you know what? I've been to Mexico before. I want to go back there at some point. So she told me about a conference that was going to be in Louisville, Kentucky, 6 hours south of us, medical missions conference.
Okay.
She's like, everybody needs dentists. We can go somewhere and do the dental thing. I don't feel really up to this. We've got people in our own backyard we can do this for, but okay, let's drive down. And so we canceled our patients on Wednesday and Thursday and Friday of that week because this conference was supposed to start Thursday morning. It would take us all day to drive on Wednesday. And lo and behold, as we were third of the way to Louisville, Kentucky, get a call from her friend who we were meeting down there, who asked us, what time are you guys leaving tomorrow? To which I responded, what are you talking about? I thought it started tomorrow. And what ended up happening is we left the entire day early. My wife got the day wrong for the conference. So in the midst of this conversation, we were told, hey, we heard about this great place called the Creation Museum right outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, Kentucky. We've never been there, heard good things about it. Maybe you ought to check it out. And so that's what we did. I went there the next day, a few hours walking through the museum, and it changed my life. Right before we left, I saw that there was a guest speaker that day with Dr. Jason Lyle, astrophysicist. Which I said, you know what, Julie, let's listen to this guy first. See what he has to say before we leave today. And it was after listening to him and then talking to him about an hour afterwards, it changed everything. And I literally walked out of the Creation Museum saying, I need to rethink everything I've ever learned.
Right. Well, what particulars? Was it, like, hey, that fossil wasn't what I thought it was, or you could see that there was, they had film of scientists inventing fake fossils. What was it?
The biggest one, honestly, was the first room you walked into. You walked through history part of the museum, and in this room was two scientists. There was a secular scientist,
Okay.
and there's a creation scientist. This is what they call the worldview. And so this is why I'm a presuppositionalist, not an evidentialist, because of what happened that day. It hit me like a ton of bricks. This first room, two scientists looking at the exact same fossil. One says, well, because I believe this Earth to be such and such billions of years old, I believe the universe to be such and such billions of years old. I look at this fossil where I know dinosaurs died out around 5 million years ago. Therefore, this fossil must be at least 65 million years old. Then it pans to the next scientist who says, he's looking at the exact same fossil, mind you, says, this is a worldview issue. The Bible is my authority, not man. And we understand the genealogies of the Bible and God creating Adam and Eve on the sixth day of creation. We see that his creation is only thousands of years old, about 6,000 years. Therefore, this dinosaur fossil can't be older than 6,000 years old. So that's what started. It was a world. I realized it was a worldview issue, and it was an authority issue. Are we taking science that changes our authority, or are we taking the unchanging Word of God?
Well, yeah, the Word of God.
That started off the.
Okay, the Word of God definitely tells tells us it's not millions of years old. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. I see nothing in Scripture to suggest that. A lot of stuff that's contradictory to that. But I am curious because I like science and I want to be a scientist. I'm a marine biologist, and a lot of people do, but I really did. And in oceanography, I met Jacques Cousteau. I knew one of the guys who helped invent scuba. I mean, it was a serious thing for me. I wanted to do that. But anyway, here I am. So science was something I really appreciated. Are there any scientific things? I'm going to say, I'm sure that there are unbelievers right now, those who are not Christians, who hold to evolutionary theory. But what kind of things would you say are problematic for the evolutionary theory?
So, let's pull out the big bomb right off the bat.
Mm-hmm.
This is the single biggest issue for evolution. And I'll tell a story Pastor Andrew Rappaport and I were preaching in New York City as part of a conference that we were teaching at several years ago. And I had just gotten on the box. I was speaking against evolution. We were on the campus of NYU, New York City. So this is a place where we get lots of professors, students who are really smart people. And there was one guy sitting in the back, and I was preaching and just shaking his head constantly, like I didn't know what I was talking about. So I got down about 10 minutes later. The entire time, his neck was swinging back and forth, or head swinging back and forth.
Okay.
I went up to him and I talked to him. I said, hey, obviously you didn't like what I was saying. What gives? Well, he proceeded to tell me he was just about to receive his PhD in evolutionary genetics. We're talking top dog
Wow.
in this field.
Mm-hmm.
He was finishing his research at NYU. And he said he disagreed with me. He believes evolution wholeheartedly. Because of that, he doesn't really believe in God.
Right.
And I said, well, can you answer me something? How does evolution supposedly work? And so, like most scientists do, they give you all kinds of terms, right? Just throw out term after term after term at you. Lots of big words to try to scare you away. I said, look, his name was Rashid. I won't give his last name. It's Rashid. Look, you and I both know it's not about these big terms. What do all these things have to have in common? Like, what is the one factor that drives every one of these terms you gave me?
Mm-hmm.
And he says, well, mutations. I said, good. It's mutations, right? It doesn't matter what term you throw out, doesn't matter what mechanism you think is out there. It all relies solely on mutations. But not just any mutations. You need mutations that increase functional genetic information over time. So to go from the single cell that an evolutionist starts with. Now, mind you, there are a whole host of problems. It's impossible for even a single living protein to develop randomly, let alone an entire cell to come together. However, we're with the evolutionists who right now have their cells. How do you get from one single simple cell to all the complex organisms, all the complex life we see today? How do you go from the single cell to the human being? Well, you've got to add lots and lots and lots of information. You're talking, if not billions, maybe trillions of bits of information that have to be added to get to where we're at today as humans.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked him then, how many mutations out of all the mutations? At that point, it was many tens of thousands of mutations that have been discovered. Today, it's probably in the hundreds of thousands of mutations that have been discovered across plants, animals, and whatnot. Tens of thousands, essentially thousands in humans alone that we can verify. Out of all of
Hey, hold on, man. We got a break coming up. We got a hard break, so you're going to hold on, okay? And hey, folks, look, we're discussing evolution and creation. If you have a question about those topics, why don't you give us a call? 877-207-2276. Be right back.
Nothing hurts my mom, but she showed anyway. She'd always say, you do what you need to do to take care of yourself. But she thought that meant she had to do it on her own. We were trained to help others, but there's strength in finding help for yourself too. We're in this together. Even the toughest of us might not know where to go to get a little support.
Encourage women who have served to learn more about the VA care and benefits they've earned. The VA Women Veterans Call Center connects veterans with personalized information on VA services that can make a difference. Call 1-855-VA-WOMEN or visit www.womenshealth.va.gov. 1-855-VA-WOMEN or visit www.womenshealth.va.gov.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything.
I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor.
If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONTCP.
A few Christmases ago, my son Josh wanted one of those remote control helicopters.
Kay Warren on Focus on the Family Minute.
So, of course, his wife got it for him, and he's flying it around our living room. And it hit the wall, fell to the ground, completely shattered. I mean, that thing was not resilient. He got about 5 minutes worth of pleasure out of this little remote control helicopter. But at that same Christmas, our grandkids all wanted Legos. And so there's Lego sets all over the place in our house. And I just want to tell you that Legos, I've decided, are the most resilient thing in the world. Because if you have ever stepped on a Lego with your bare foot, you know that you will never be able to kill the Lego. The Lego will kill you. They are the most resilient things ever made.
God calls us to be resilient, especially in moments of pain and trial. More from Kay at FamilyMinute.org.
4 out of 5 women with ovarian cancer will experience recurrence. It's often incurable. Until recently, following chemotherapy, women with recurrent ovarian cancer had to simply watch and wait for their disease to come back.
Well, we say,
Not on my watch. Not on my watch. With maintenance therapies, women can delay recurrence.
awareness of your choices empowers you.
Take an informed and active role. Visit not.
It's Matt Slick Live, taking your calls at 877-207-2276. Here's Matt Slick.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. We have Anthony Silvestro, Dr. Anthony Silvestro, on the line with us. We're discussing evolutionism and the biblical truth of creation. Now, where were we? You were mentioning something about information genetics and things like that, mutations. We had a break, so why don't you go ahead and keep going? Are you there?
So I was just about to give an answer.
Mhm.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
was just about to give an answer. How many mutations have ever been discovered that have been shown to increase functional genetic information? And the answer would be a whopping 0. None. The very mechanism by which everything in evolutionism rests has never been demonstrated. In fact, the exact opposite is demonstrated. That
What do you mean, mutations have never been demonstrated to occur?
mutations that increase functional genetic information.
What about sickle cell stuff? Isn't that, because that's what something I get back all the sickle cell, the mutation. It made people less vulnerable to certain disease.
Less vulnerable to malaria, that's right.
Uh-huh.
And yet, so sickle cell is one of those really interesting cases. We would call that, now this only happens about 1 in every 10,000 or so mutations that we know of, but it's what we call a beneficial mutation. It's the loss of information. So the normal hemoglobin red blood cell, it looks like a biconcave disc. So take like a dish plate and actually take 2 of them and put them together where the bases touch each other.
Right.
That's kind of the shape of what a hemoglobin molecule looks like. However, on the second amino acid, on the second beta chain in the hemoglobin, one of the amino acids switched out incorrectly. There's a mutation there. And it causes this biconcave disc to actually turn into a sickle cell shape, which means it carries less oxygen than what a normal biconcave disc hemoglobin can carry. So while this person may have accidentally had a benefit if they have this mutation and they live in an area of malaria, if you take this person out of the area of malaria and bring it to America where we don't have malaria, the person is actually at a disadvantage. They've lost information within the red blood cell. So a beneficial mutation is still a loss of information in every case that we know of, except that it just so happens in a couple of areas it turns out to be a benefit.
So maybe
It does not answer the issue of new information.
So then basically the so-called benefits really are a reduction of genetic information that allow an organism to survive only in a very narrow situation. When the narrow situation is gone, that's it. It doesn't help them at all. In fact, it hurts them in other categories. That's what you're talking about.
That's correct. It hurts them in every other category.
Okay.
And this is no different than antibiotic-resistant bacteria. Same issue there. So the few examples that the evolutionists try to point out as these mutations, they're trying to pull a fast one on us. None of these increase information.
Right.
They're all a net loss. It just is accidental that they're beneficial. And again, there's very few examples of this anyway that exist anywhere. So it certainly doesn't answer the question. In fact, these same scientists who promote evolution, they say that, again, everything that we see today came about by adding information to the genome over time for billions of years, are the same guys who are puzzled by something called genetic entropy. Like everything else in creation that's decaying, our genome is decaying as well.
Yeah. Isn't it something like, I've heard like 200-ish more to 250-ish more generations, and we won't be able to replicate. We won't be able to have any offspring. Have you heard something like that similar?
Yeah, they're trying to guess. They're trying to figure this out. So yeah, they have all kinds of guesses out there. But what they've been able to figure out so far is that each successive generation has 50 to 100 more mutations than the previous, which means my son has 50 to 100 more permanent mutations than my wife and I.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't even know yet if this is a linear model or if this is an exponential model. It may be that it's accumulating at a really, really fast pace, so it's accelerating as time goes on. But, there's not been enough time for us to know because we've only been able to analyze genes for a few generations.
Yeah.
Being able to look back with some of the current equipment. So it's going to be a while before we know, but it may only be 200, 250 more generations before we've got severe problems to reproduce.
Yeah, that's what I've been hearing, and that genetic entropy is a very serious thing. It's not talked about very much, but I forgot, an analogy of it would be, I guess, a 100-mile long zipper, and that's our genetic information, and it unzips from both ends, just an inch each new generation, and it keeps unraveling as more people have children. And so pretty soon there's not enough information to be viable anymore, at least in the biological sense. So, for people to understand that. But yeah, I don't know if it's being be verified. I want to find some articles on that, some scientific journal articles that talk about it. It'd be great. But anyway, so the mutation issue. Come on. But aren't there a lot of fossils out there that prove evolution is true? Boy, I can't believe I'm saying it like that. What a gimme sentence. Go for it. Oh, man. Aren't there a lot of fossils? And you should say, hey, Matt, thanks. I'm glad you asked that question. But
it's a great question, Matt.
Oh, good.
So, I'm going to ask you a question in order to answer this. What do you think it takes for a fossil? Do you think that it is a slow process of something getting slowly buried over millions of years?
No.
Or do you think that something was rapidly buried when it was either alive or had just died?
Alive or just died, rapidly buried, and it has to have certain mineral compounds in the environment that buried it in order to exchange the biological stuff for fossilization to occur. And I won't go on. I could keep going. Go ahead.
Obviously, you study this stuff.
Oh, yeah,
I've studied. Well, that's exactly right. You need very specific circumstances for a fossil to form. You don't need a long period of time. There's a well in England that people have put teddy bears in that we've seen things fossilized within a few months to a few years. It's a famous well that has a ton of mineral content in the water. People hang stuff in this well. We have numerous examples of things being petrified in caves, like miners' hats, things like that. So we've got numerous examples of this. But what's interesting about living things is if a gazelle dies in the African plains, is there really enough time for dust to settle over it before it's scavenged away? Or let's say there's no scavengers present. If that gazelle just dies, will it really not break down due to the elements and be perfectly preserved? So, because this is the issue, right? Fossils are
Well, I didn't hear it, but we've got another break coming up, Anthony. We got to hold on. We got another hard break.
Stop right there.
Okay, good breaking point. And hey, folks, we're discussing evolution and creation with Dr. Anthony Silvestro. I hope you want to stay tuned. Be right back after these great messages. Please stay tuned.
Sam Weish was a quarterback, head coach, and broadcaster in the NFL. Last year, he became a heart recipient.
And now I know what a miracle feels like. My new heart gave me a new mission in life, and that is to get others to sign up to be organ donors. There are over 130 million people that have already signed up. Be a part of that. Please sign up to be an organ, eye, and tissue donor. Go to organdonor.gov.
U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Health Resources and Services Administration.
Wake up and text. Text and eat. Text and catch the bus. Text and miss your stop. Wait. Text and be late to work. Sorry, I'm late. Text and work. Text and pretend to work. Text and act surprised when someone calls you out for not working. Me? Text and meet up with a friend you haven't seen in forever.
Hi.
Oh, hey. Text and complain that they're on their phone the whole time. Text and listen to them complain that you're on your phone the whole time. Text and whatever. But when you get behind the wheel, give your phone to a passenger. Put it in the glove box. Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
To protect his home and family from disaster, Steve used courage, wisdom, and his camera phone. That should do it. Way to go, Steve! By simply taking digital pictures of his family's important documents, Steve can always have them stored safely online, no matter when disaster strikes. Learn other simple ways to protect your home and family before a natural disaster at ready.gov. That's ready.gov. A message from FEMA and the Ad Council.
Here's a Renewing Your Mind Minute with Dr. R.C. Sproul.
The law is not a way of salvation, but it is a way of sanctification. It is a way of manifesting one's obedience to the God who saves us by grace. Just as in the New Testament, Jesus says to his disciples, who are not saved by their works, but by his, if you love me, keep my commandments. And also, the law not only reveals the holiness of God, but it also is a mirror by which we see our lack of holiness. And in that, the law is not something that's antithetical to the gospel, but it is the schoolmaster that drives us to Christ. So that one of the most important functions of the law of God is to reveal to us our need for grace, our need for the Redeemer.
For today's special offer, visit renewingyourmind.org.
It's Matt Slick Live, taking your calls at 877-207-2276. Here's Matt Slick.
All right, welcome back to the show, everybody. We are on the line with Anthony Silvestro, Dr. Anthony Silvestro, and we're discussing evolution and creation stuff. We have a guy waiting online. I'm going to just jump in very quickly, get his call. And folks, if you want to call and ask questions about creation, evolution, the number is 877-207-2276. Nathan, really fast. What do you got, buddy?
Yes, sir. I was asking about the new American Standard updated version coming out in 2020. I've heard that some bad things about it.
I went ahead and talked to them, and they sent me a document. They're not messing up on any of the gender stuff. They're being very, very specific about the gender issue, so there's nothing to worry about from what they've said. Okay?
Alrighty, I appreciate it. Well, I just wanted to, because I trust you. You know, you're pretty good at that stuff, and I was just wanted to get your thought. I appreciate it.
You know, I'm going to try and get an early copy if I can, and then go through it, and we'll see, just to make sure. But that's what they said so far. All right, buddy? Sound good?
Hey, appreciate. Are you going to put something out about it?
Later, once I get some more documentation. But yeah. All right?
You're awesome. I appreciate it.
Okay, thanks, man. Appreciate that. See, when people tell me I'm awesome on the radio, I want to tell them to call my wife and tell her that I'm awesome. That's what I want to do. I don't know, Anthony, if your wife needs to hear how great you are as well. I'd be glad that, we can, you kind of pat each other on the back, and I'll call her up. Hey, your husband's awesome. And then see if she yawns, then I'll know that she and my wife have been talking. So I don't know. So anyway.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We get a bunch of Christian men to do this with us.
Yeah, we have, we need a mutual back patting committee or something. Hey, you're great. Yeah, I know. That's true. My wife doesn't know it, I tell her all the time. I even walk with an arrogant kind of a strut with a raised eyebrow and just kind of, shake my head a little bit, tilt it back and forth and go, hey, baby. She just walks away usually. So I go, but what? So I don't know. She doesn't think I'm great. She's stuck with me. That's what it is, though. I always tell people she's lucky to have me. She's wonderful. Okay. Anyway, so there we go. We're discussing fossils and fossilization. It has to happen quickly, and it does. And speaking of fossils, come on now. Aren't there kabillions of transitional forms fossilized, proving that evolution is a verified system of one species evolving slowly into another, documented through the multitudinous amount of fossils of transitionals. Isn't that the case?
Well, see, now you're opening up a can of worms.
Fossilized worms.
Let's talk about transitional fossils.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So as we talk about fossils, just to kind of clarify our thoughts from earlier, is that it is an absolute must that something to be exquisitely preserved, as we see billions of times over throughout the fossil record, is that these things were exquisitely preserved to minute details of the skin, or in the case of plants, even some of the veins and leaves are preserved. And the only way this happens is something was rapidly buried because it was still alive or had just died and not broken down yet. And so the only way that this can be explained is by rapid burial from the worldwide flood. So when we look at the fossil record out there, this is the result of, in some places, 100 to 200 feet thick of sediments being dumped on land in very rapid fashion all over the globe by water. And so we see things just got mass buried. It's a mass burial all over the world. So that's number one. Now, when we talk about transitions, what's interesting is that when you look at the scientific literature, and I say this with air quotes, by the way, you can't see me doing it with my fingers. When we look at the literature, they have something called the Cambrian explosion.
Oh, yeah.
Because they acknowledge in some of the base layers of the fossil record that they see very simple organisms. And then all of a sudden in the fossil record, Cambrian period, they have all kinds of complex organisms. What's missing is the in-between stuff, from the very simple organisms all the way to the complex. It looks like there's billions of years of supposed transitional fossils missing. They're not there.
Right.
So what the scientists are looking at is they're trying to look at, among the complex organisms that are present in the fossil record, which ones seem to be the ones that closely resemble one another. And these, by their imaginations, they line a few of them up and say, this must be, or these must be some of the transitions. So this is what they do, in essence. It's a completely arbitrary, made-up thing. And a lot of times what we find is when you go to museums, hey, have you ever noticed, like, if you've gone to a number of natural history museums and you look at Lucy, why does Lucy, which is supposedly one of our earlier transitions, right? We came
Hominid ancestor. Yeah.
Yeah. Why is it that different among all the different museums across the country? It's the same set of bones that was found, right? It just duplicated over and over again. Why does Lucy look different?
Well, SpongeBob has the answer.
Has done a rendering.
Yeah, SpongeBob has the answer. Yeah, you got to use your imagination.
That's right.
That's it.
That's exactly what they do.
Yeah.
Yes, they give Lucy, who is an obvious ape, they give her human-like quality.
Yeah.
To make it look like a transition.
Right.
And they have several of these examples. But here's the problem, Matt. I mean, I'm sure you know a little bit of math, like I do. It's one of my majors in college. So let's do some fun math here. It is said that chimpanzees are humans' closest relatives. A chimpanzee would have they would have somewhere around 85% similarity to a human being, which sounds like a lot. But in reality, when you look at the length of the genome of a human versus a chimpanzee, that 85% similarity turns out to be a 15% difference, which turns into about 450 million base pairs that are different in the DNA between a human and a chimp. That means that at a minimum, if evolution went perfectly straight line and every mutation added beneficial, every mutation was beneficial going from the chimpanzee to the human, at a minimum, you would have to have 450 million transitional species between a chimp and a human. And that's, again, at a very minimum, if it's a straight line. So, if we find, Matt, one human in the fossil record and one chimpanzee in the fossil record, statistically speaking, how many transitional forms should we find in the fossil record?
We should have a lot.
A lot, like 450 million at a minimum.
Minimum.
Right?
If they're all preserved.
At a minimum.
Yeah.
If they're all preserved.
Right.
But, okay, so what are the chances that if you find one human in the fossil record and you find one chimp, you should have a bunch out of the 450 million also preserved?
Yeah, you think.
If you have two humans and two chimpanzees, it should be somewhere around 4.5 billion, right? You multiply by 10. If you have 10 humans, 10 chimps, what if you have 100 humans, 100 chimps? Now, the numbers can keep going up because there's tons of humans in the fossil record and there's tons of chimps in the fossil record. The bottom line is that we should have trillions, literally trillions, of transitional fossils in the fossil record. Which should bring up something interesting, because back in 1859, when Sir Charles Darwin wrote his book on the origin of species, he said in chapter 10 this statement, but just in proportion as this process of extermination has acted on an enormous scale, so must the number of intermediate varieties which have formerly existed be truly enormous. Why then is not every geological formation and every stratum full of such intermediate links? Geology assuredly does not reveal any such finely graduated organic chain, and this perhaps is the most obvious and serious objection which can be urged against my theory. So he says this two different times in his book. I just read this verbatim from the beginning of chapter 10. And he goes on to say that the biggest problem in his theory, even in the future, is if these transitions are never discovered. So Charles Darwin understood this problem nowhere near as good as we do. When we can come up with a number like about 450 million differences between a human and a chimp, that tells us that yeah, out of all the end game, so to speak, complex forms that we see, so the different types of cats and types of dogs, I think we're at the break.
Yes, we are. It's like a sedimentary break, except in time. We got to take a commercial. Be right back, folks. After these messages, please stay tuned.
One in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man. You your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and its prediabetes awareness partners.
The U.S. is projected to add 10 million jobs over the next 5 years. But will today's high school students be ready for the jobs of tomorrow? Text FUTURE to 225568 to learn more about high school and the future of work. The future of our country is in high school, and politicians are deciding the future right now. This is your chance to use your vote to make a positive impact for generations to come. Text FUTURE to 225568 to learn more from XQ. Message and data rates may apply.
This is the story of a very special woman. In a matter of seconds, she turned herself into a great mathematician or an entrepreneur. Her knowledge was limitless and still is. She could also make monsters disappear, especially those that lurked in the shadows under the bed. Once, this woman put back together a teenage girl's broken heart, which had been shattered in 1,000 pieces. Just by giving her a bear hug. She masqueraded as a regular person at work, but as a superhero at home. Everyone knows her as Gabriella. I still call her Mom.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need to help, complete with tips and resources at aarp.org/caregiving. A public service announcement brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
This is John MacArthur inviting you to join me for Portraits of Grace. On his 75th birthday, a man who had lived his entire life in a small West Virginia town was invited to fly over it. Although he had never flown before, he accepted the offer. After circling the town for about 20 minutes, the pilot returned his passenger to the ground. The man's grandson greeted him excitedly, asking, "Were you scared, Grandpa?" "Oh, no," he said. I never put my full weight down." Well, unlike the example of that hesitant grandfather, true faith puts complete trust in its object. As a Christian, that means you can rest in God and His power and promises. If you are a truly faithful individual, you'll believe God and you'll respond to Him no matter what life brings your way. This is John MacArthur, trusting your lives are portraits of grace.
It's Matt Slick Live, taking your calls at 877-207-2276. Here's Matt Slick.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the show. We're on the line with Anthony Silvestro discussing evolution, creationism, and stuff like that. And he had just mentioned the Cambrian explosion a little bit and the fossil records and transitional forms and problems there. All right, you want to keep going?
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, in conclusion, is that the vast number of transitional fossils, transitional species that Darwin expected to find in the future that we know mathematically have to be there are not found. And so when they parade a half a dozen or so examples of what they believe to be transitional fossils in front of us, it is sorely lacking in terms of how many there need to be. And I will tell you that when they're actually examined closely, you can tell whether it is a human being like Neanderthal or it's an ape like Lucy and just about everything else they pick up in front of us. The hip structure is totally different. The ratio length of arms and legs is totally different. These fossils are obviously either ape or human when they parade them in front of us. But some good imagination, some good artists, and they make it seem like they happen somewhere in between.
Right. Yeah, I always got a kick out of the issue of homology, the idea that fossils look like they are related to each other in evolutionary form, so therefore they put them together. And this is a scientific method. It looks like it, so let's put them together and then call it true. And when I found out about that, I was like, are you kidding me? How do you know what looks like and what doesn't look like, or relates and does not relate? You weren't there. You couldn't see. Anyway, it's a big guessing game in a lot of areas. What would you say about Archaeopteryx, that reptile bird that they found fossils of. Isn't that proof of some sort of transitional form?
Not at all. And I would invite your listeners to look up some great websites on Archaeopteryx, because there's a number of these examples that some of the creation ministries have done a wonderful job of explaining what they are. So Archaeopteryx and others, some of them are distinct animals, standalone animals on their own, standalone kinds, and others are just, again, artist renderings of what they really are. And Archaeopteryx is one of these as well. It is not a transition between a bird and a dinosaur.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I got another question for you. This is something that I've read once, but I don't know if it's true, and I just haven't verified it. But they do age studies. They'll take some pictures of people at certain ages, and then they put them into computer programs or develop programs that try and predict what someone might look like, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. And I read this article, I forgot where, and it was like 20, 25 years ago, where somebody took just a normal human being and aged them 600 years, 700 years. And they were shocked. It looked like a Neanderthal. You ever heard of that?
I have heard of that. It's hard to figure out, though, because we don't know much about Neanderthal in terms of exactly when they lived and the circumstances. So, because obviously we look in the Bible and we see that pre-flood, so between 4,400 years and about 6,000 years ago, we saw a very long lifespan. Right? We saw that Methuselah, oldest man to ever live, at least recorded, 969 years. Adam lived to be 930 years, and so on. So these guys lived a long time. We don't understand what that aging process was. The world was very different, and we've got a lot of actual science that shows how different some things were in the pre-flood era versus the post-flood era. And so we see in the Bible a rapid decline in ages to get down to what we see as a lifespan today, which is around 80 years old for men and women. There's about a 4-year difference between men and women. And so we don't really know in terms of how the aging process was, how they would have looked. Could it be that they were human that had, yes, aged longer? They were part of the older age span, even if it was post-flood, because we saw after the flood there was several generations that it took to go from the long life down to the 120 years or so, and then down to what we see today, which is the 70 to 80 year lifespan. So it's hard to know, and maybe more research will start to figure that stuff out.
Right. Yeah, I always thought that kind of stuff was interesting. I like, and I kind of miss the issue of studying science and just getting into it. One of the things I want to do is study genetics and get down to, just the very, very basics of the DNA structures and folds and information themselves, because I think that the information issue is the death blow to evolutionary theory. I really do. And of course, the fossil record. The fossil record just doesn't show what it's supposed to show. And I've heard various things being told about hominid ancestors, in that something, and you're more up on this than I am, but all of the hominid ancestors could fit on like 1 or 2 pool tables. That's how many there are. There's not that much. Is that about what you've heard also?
Well, that's right. And again, we have to be careful using the term ancestor, right? Because we don't know what exactly is humans versus what what science is telling us is different than what we think they are in terms of human versus apes. But you are absolutely correct about that. And that plays into the issue of the number of supposed transitions that they have. They don't have a lot to choose from, so they picked half a dozen or so to try to claim these are some of the transitions on the hominid.
Right. Yeah, I find it interesting that And it reminds me of Roman Catholicism, actually, believe it or not, the concept of driving a truckload of quote unquote truth through a sliver of information, as the Roman Catholics do it in various verses of the Bible and force various doctrines and things through it. The evolutionists aren't immune to that as well. These scientists who will very often look for information and look for a justification of information. You know, you and I both know that there have been fakes and frauds perpetrated in the evolutionary community that were readily accepted as hominid ancestors that later were found out not to be. The scientific community has its own means by which it suppresses information and prevents people from bringing forth things that don't go along with the status quo. And it's unfortunate. They have a death-nail grip on the scientific community. Now, I do know that there's an increasing number of scientists who are rejecting the neo-Darwinian theory of evolution. I don't know what the number is up, but it's in the hundreds and hundreds. It's been increasing for years.
Yeah. The problem is their jobs are on the line.
Yeah.
So they have to be really, really quiet. But what's interesting is if you look at some of the best journals out there, so we're talking about medical research journals, we're talking about evolutionary research journals, some of the best research being done out there in the smallest magazines. So, when lay people read magazines, they read things that are very surface level, right? And then you've got intermediate, you've got advanced type journals that are out there. In the advanced journals, which most people aren't reading because they can't read them with all the technical jargon in them, you will find that there's a lot of people, a lot of scientists prop up evolution in the public sphere, but then in the private space say this doesn't work.
Yeah.
That's what's alarming. But they're either not willing to say it or they're not allowed to say it for fear of jobs.
Oh yeah.
We have to look no further than the Christian guy who's out west, the scientist, and I think it was University of Colorado, if I'm not mistaken, that he broke open a Triceratops horn, which this is probably a topic for another show, another day. I know we're running out of time here. But he broke open a Triceratops horn, and instead of finding what he should find, which is dead everything, he found spongy tissue and red blood cells. This is not something that has been dead for millions of years. He was told by the school not to put this out there, to squash the research. He put it out there and got fired from his position for this. He ended up winning a lawsuit for wrongful termination a few years later. But this is a guy who the school tried to suppress truth, suppress the evidence about the Triceratops because they know this is another death knell to evolution.
Yeah, I've heard of things. I've heard of other things like that as well as trees being fossilized in hundreds of millions of years of strata. In Nebraska, I think there's in Nebraska, isn't there a plateau where the older rock is on the top and younger rock is on the bottom, or some wonky thing about sedimentary levels and things like that? I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Oh, that's right. Where it looked like the layers were flipped. That's correct. But of course, part of the problem is their radiometric dating methods. This would be for another show. The radiometric dating methods have a number of assumptions in them, and they're incorrect. Yeah. So this is what can lead to problems in dating rock layers with them. The trees that you're talking about are what we call polystrate fossils. These are fossils that there's no way a tree would have decayed within the hundreds of millions of years of strata that it's sitting through, which means that it didn't take millions of years for these layers to be laid to preserve the tree. It means that these trees were buried in one fell swoop.
By what? What would be the explanation for layers and layers of sediment around a vertical tree?
Well, the explanation would be a worldwide flood.
A flood, yeah.
And we have other evidence too. It's not even just a worldwide flood that can do this. We have evidence at Mount St. Helens. This is something that blew just in 1980. So we've got a lot of wonderful photography and videos of this. For anybody who's got more interest in this, go look up Dr. Steve Austin, and you can find some great research he's done. But we've shown how volcanoes can explode And if they've got glaciers on top, can melt them rapidly and cause mud flows down the sides of hills, can cause rapid sedimentation, can cause burying trees. And this is a wonderful example of it, where there's tons of polystrate fossils there that were all buried quickly, all these trees.
Yep.
We see peat forming fast. So wonderful evidence out there for people that are willing to look.
Yeah, what I understand, they also took some photographs of some of the new canyons formed by that. There's a lake there at Mount St. Helens that flooded out, got wiped out, whatever it was, and eroded an area. And they took these photos to some scientists, and the scientists said, "Oh, it takes 12 million years to form," or whatever it was. And no, it took 2 weeks.
2 weeks. That's right.
Mhm.
And what's interesting about Mount St. Helens is when you look at the big canyon carved, as well as all the little canyons and tributaries carved, that it looks exactly like what we see at 1/40th the scale of the Grand Canyon.
Yeah.
And so we have observable evidence.
Oh, there's the break. Oh, we're done. Oh well. Hey, thanks a lot, Anthony. Really appreciate it. We'll have to have you on again. And everybody, that's the end of the show. We've been talking about evolution and creation. Enjoyable. Give us some feedback, what you think, and if you want to hear that again. Hey, Anthony, man, God bless. I'll give the contact information for you tomorrow, and we'll talk to everybody then. God bless everybody. God bless. Bye.
God bless you. Thank you.
All right, we're out the area. You still there?